Hey guys, welcome back to the Yin and Yang Show. Thanks for joining us again for a spectacular week of sales and marketing conversations. I'm Lindsay Kelly, joined as always by Mr. Brian Signorelli, and we have a fantastic guest that Brian is going to introduce. Take it away, Brian.
Good morning, Lindsay. I'm thrilled to have I was debating back and forth in my head. I'm just like, is he my sales and marketing superhero or is he my sales and marketing arch nemesis? I'm not sure. But I'm thrilled to have on with us this morning Mr. Doug Davidoff, the founder and CEO of Imagine Business Development. So Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. If it makes you feel any better, Brian, I argue with myself probably every bit or more than I agree and argue with you. So tough existence.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, from time to time, Doug and I will have conversations back and forth on LinkedIn, sometimes on Twitter, sometimes. Usually, I feel like they're productive, and we get places with mostly sales topics. But for those of you listening, or those of you who have watched our kind of friendly feuds back and forth a little bit on some of those channels, what you may not know is that Doug is also a marketing expert, and we don't talk about that as much. And so today, I think we're in a really cool position to have somebody like yourself, Doug, who can talk to both sides of that equation, both the marketing side and the sales side. And I would like to do just that today. How's that sound?
I get to talk? I get to ask marketing questions?
I think it's time to bring marketing back.
We're bringing marketing back.
Hey, we're going to give marketing a seat at the table.
We are.
Marketing gets a seat at the table today.
Marketing gets a seat at the table today. It's very hard to get that. And I will say this. So I first learned of Doug. Now, I am from Baltimore. And so Doug is in the Maryland area as well. And so one of my goals when I started at the copy dealership that I worked at back in the day was to actually bring them into the digital age. And so I can't remember if it was 2010 or 2011, but I was so proud because I had been like pounding into these sales reps' heads. You have to help me blog. You have to help me blog. So we actually had a blog. And so we submitted to the Baltimore Business Journal, our blog, because they had this best of blog, something or other. Anyway, Doug kicked my ass, took, I think, first place. And we were third, I think.
I think that's right, yeah.
And I was like, oh, look at this guy. But you had legitimately, as a sales professional, taken blogging at that time to a level where I can't even remember the numbers, but they were ridiculous. You had positioned yourself as such an expert in the sales world using the blog. It was amazing. So can you take me all the way back to there and kind of talk, how did you start there?
Yes, that was a cool one. So there were two times that we were featured for the blog. I just have to, I do have to take 1 second to brag since you brought that memory. So we had that, which was the award that was cool. But a couple years before that, there was a publication in the DC area that was talking about business people who blogged. That was back when everyone thought, if you were a blogger, that meant you were Matt Drudge or Paris Hilton or something. And so, I still remember there's the picture. They wanted to have the really cool rad, you're a blogger type thing. So there's a picture of me wearing shorts, these goofy looking sandals or whatever back in the day. I remember when we would wear, wearing sandals to work was cool.
Yeah, Birks, like Birkenstocks with socks?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, no socks. No socks?
Okay.
And the other person that they featured was Ted Leonsis.
I don't even know who that is.
So Ted Leonsis is actually the guy behind AOL's growth. So he was Steve Case's number 2, and he owned the Capitals at the time. He was the minority owner of the Bullets, and Ted was in his own smaller way, Ted was Mark Cuban before Mark Cuban was Mark Cuban.
Very cool.
So I was featured with Ted Leonsis. So yeah, anyways, I started blogging in 2005, back before blogging was cool. And it was right about 2010, 2011 that award came out. And I do actually remember one key point of it. I'm a data guy. I'm a numbers guy. I'm always challenging people. Sometimes you think the right thing to do isn't the right thing to do when you actually look at what's the impact. And so I had done a session a couple months earlier before we had to do the submission on the rationale for business blogging. And I was doing it for the American Marketing Association And so I'm like, I'm not going to just go up and say, here's all the anecdotal stories of why blogging is cool. I need to tell these people, this is the business reason that you need to blog. And so I sat down and I said, you know, what impact has it had? How has it helped our marketing and lead generation? How has it helped our sales process, which it had tremendous impact on sales process. But we also looked at it and we said, how has it helped us in service delivery? Right. So when we're talking to people and explaining things to people, we would oftentimes blog about that, and then we'd be able to share those blogs. And so back in 2010, my company was about 5 years old, and I'd been blogging for about 5 years, and we calculated the value of the blog, direct monetary impact of $2.2 million.
Wow.
I said I would have had to spend $2.2 million, which I would not have had to spend, mind you. But that I would have had to spend $2.2 million to replicate what we did. I would have needed more people. I would have needed to spend money on advertising to build the audience that we had, so on and so forth. So it started off because, and I still tell people this today, who, you know, we still get businesses that just begin to blog. And I still remember there was my mom, my brother, and some crazy guy in China. Those were the readers of my blog when the first blogs came out. And actually the number two, kind of my number two person at the time, came to me after we'd had I think we had posted about 10 blogs. And he's like, Doug, you know, this isn't working. I'm like, what do you mean it's not working? He's like, you know, we're doing something wrong because, you know, we've got 10 blogs out and, you know, nothing's happened. I'm like, nothing's going to happen when my mom, my brother, and some crazy guy in China are listening. It's like, that's not what this is about. It's about, we got to build it. And, you know, today, man, because I just looked yesterday, 70% of our traffic originates on the blog.
So would you tell them to sit down, watch Field of Dreams, and then like everything else will be explained?
I probably wasn't that tactical. It's funny because that's the other mistake. You know, it's not Field of Dreams. It's not just build it and they will come. You know, it's funny that you say that, but it's also I kind of joke around. This is why I love where sales and marketing come together. We make things so hard. We make things so much more difficult than they need to be, because we can look in other disciplines and actually see how it's done. And farmers figured this out a long time ago, right? They realized that if they wanted to plant a crop, the first thing they had to do was find a field that was conducive to growing that crop. And if the field wasn't conducive to growing that crop, the first thing they had to do was either find a new field or change the field, right? You could go through that whole process. And then they realized that they had to plant seeds, right? They had to, you know, nurture the seeds, and they had to let it grow. And if they tried to monetize too early, right? Do you ever hear farmers talking about monetizing their product? You know, if they try to monetize too early, you're, you know, hey, the first piece of corn, you know, the first little head of, you know, branch of the corn stalk is coming up here. Let's cut it so we can sell it, right? You know, they get it, and they get that, you know, I got to plant in the fall. I plant in the spring, you know, gather in the fall, build that out, manage it. And it's, you know, it's a bunch of sales and marketers who think, hey, okay, let's launch this new initiative. And 2 weeks in, we're like, where's the leads? What's the ROI on this strategy?
Yeah, no, and it's true, because when you're not as close to it as people like us are, I mean, for instance, we're talking about starting a blog at my new company, not a blog. We have a blog, a podcast, and so, you know, I'm going back and forth with the CMO, who's my boss, and he's like, look, we'll give it a couple months, you know, maybe 3, and see if anything comes of it. And I'm like, you can't give it 3 months. I'm like, that's not even like, there's no way that we're going to get anything in 3 months. I said, you know, at 6 months, let's see where it is. I'm like, and then at a year, we'll make the decision. But you have to give these things time to nurture and grow, just like you were saying, Doug. But it's hard to get that message across for folks who just don't live and breathe it like we do.
The one thing that's crazy, I'm sure you both have probably heard this stat before, but Doug, you were blogging even, I think, before HubSpot.
I did. I talked to Jenny Minio on our podcast a couple weeks ago, and I did point out to her that we did start blogging before HubSpot did.
Now, Dharmesh may have been blogging about the same time that you were blogging on startups, right? But
yep.
So that was, probably around the same time.
Right, at the same time, yeah. HubSpot has built a larger audience than I built. Just for the record, I do have to give them credit for that.
Just a little bit.
An army of 100+ marketers, but
Right.
one thing I do find really interesting about this, I don't know I don't know the right analogy to use here. I guess I'm blanking on it, but like the agricultural or agrarian analogy that you used. It's interesting is that if you do let your crops kind of continue to grow and you turn the land over every year, so on and so forth. One of the things I think is really interesting is that HubSpot looked and said, okay, well, where do our leads actually come from? Is it from new blog content or is it from old blog content? What's really interesting is that I think about 90% of all of our lead flow comes from old blog content. It doesn't come from all that new content, despite the fact that, for example, like the HubSpot sales blog, we sometimes publish 2 articles a day. Yet 90% of lead flow is still coming from that old content. So it's basically, it's the concept of that analogy that Halligan always uses, that it's owning versus renting land, basically, over the long haul, which I think is tough for, all of us living in the on-demand economy, to get comfortable with.
We had a debate about that, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I think people forget is, I think people forget that today's new content is tomorrow's old content.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I was going to say, in 2 years, those blogs are going to be the ones bringing in the leads.
Right. Yeah. That exactly. Yes. Yep.
Well, and what's interesting is, you look at HubSpot, and I'm awed by some of the stuff they do. In fairness, I take them to task on other things, but they haven't just built traffic and they didn't just build lead volume. They've continued to grow it. So not only is today's blog the lead generator in 2 years tomorrow, but what's great about it is it's the lead generator of tomorrow, not taking away from the lead generator of today or the lead generator of 2 years ago. Whereas when we're doing page strategies, when we're advertising, pay-per-click, whatever the case may be, we either need to spend more money because the costs are going up, or what we're doing is we're bringing in our optimized strategy to replace our old strategy. So, I have a blog post that for years was our #1 producer of qualified leads. It's now our #3 producer of qualified leads, right? If I had to make a decision to, am I going to update this strategy? Yeah, of course I would, especially now, how would I have known when the right time to replace it would be? But what's been nice is I don't have, which goes to exactly what Halligan was saying, is I don't even remember what that blog says, to be honest with you. But that's how old it is, and it's still the #3 producer.
Yeah.
So it has zero cost to me. The thing I loved about blogging and why I started doing it in 2005 was I realized that if I started blogging in 2005 and I knew it was going to be a thing, people who started blogging in 2008, I had a competitive advantage over them. I had 3 years of track record they'll never be able to recreate. They could blog every day. They could outblog. They could do all that stuff. But it was there. Challenger Sale came out. I know you're an old CEB guy. Challenger Sale came out and it was kindred spirit, right? I had people who called me up and said, Doug, I didn't know you wrote a book. Because that's how on point it was to the stuff we were saying. And if I were out there today talking about a lot of things we've talked about for years, it would sound like I'm just, ripping off what was in Challenger Sale. But I got 6 years of content that's out there that shows, hey, as a matter of fact, I got a cease and desist letter from CEB.
What?
Years ago. Yeah, years ago. Yeah.
For what?
One piece was we had used Challenger in a way that they didn't want us to use. And that was fine. I got it. But there was another piece about them saying that we were delivering, something or other. And so when we responded to it, we said, hey, we've changed this. Actually, it was great. Because we ended up creating a better term that we now use that's our own, because we had to think of it. So we call it the point of view messaging.
Yeah.
Instead of challenger message, we now call it point of view messaging.
Yeah.
So that was cool. But because I had that track record of content, my lawyer was able to respond to them to say, this is a continuation of what he's been writing about for years. And, we never heard another word from CEB, and we weren't going to have any problems. So those are some of the other more intangible benefits that you get when you put your stuff out there.
Very well, we'll see if they behave any differently being part of Gartner. I doubt it, but very litigious company.
Yep.
So you talked about that blog being your number 3 producer of leads. Let's talk about lead generation today and what is working for you the best. And we'll start with that.
Wow, that's a
loaded question.
Yeah, it's a loaded question. It's a good question, and it's like, well, where do I even start? Because, the impulse, and I'm actually on a little bit of a I don't know, Quixote journey right now on this. I was actually talking to Megan Anderson about this because she was talking about how much things had changed and how much things are changing now, and I challenged her on that, and I said, are things really changing now? 10 to 15 years ago, they began to really change. Inbound marketing, ZMOT, customer really, the environment came that the customer could seize the control they always wanted to seize. Everyone's talking about AI now and this and that and all these different things, but that's not a change, right? That's a changing of the tools. Maybe it's a changing of the song, but it's not a changing of the, it's still the same game, accelerated paces, et cetera. So when you say what's working for me now, lead generation, actually the same things that were working for me 5 years ago, like the exact same things. And we've added to it. So there's this big battle in marketing, conversational marketing, no forms. Our forms convert 50 to 70%. I don't know. Why would I take those down? And not at small volumes. Now, we have to give really good content, right? And so what's working, and I actually, so I think where people think things have changed was you were able to cheat, and you can't cheat as much anymore. There's a whole conversation about the cost of inbound marketing is going up. There used to be this tremendous advantage of, if you showed the cost per organic lead versus the cost per paid lead, you're seeing the cost per organic lead rising. And the truth of the matter is, it will rise to the point and the cost of pay-per-click, because that's how economics works, right? More, people saw that, more people came in, and the difficulty was we began to, and this is the good and bad. I know one of the questions that you guys gave me in prep was, what's different today? What's changed since I was there? And I love the data that's available to us today. And I hate the data that's available to us today because what happens is we make the data the objective. And what we have to understand is that the data is the byproduct, right? That email wasn't successful because 6% of people clicked on it or 10% of people clicked on it. 10% of people clicked on it because the email was effective. Right. And so we made click rates and open rates and blog views and blog frequency. HubSpot, selling a marketing automation product, said, if you have 1 landing page, you get this rate of lead generation. If you have 2, you get this. If you have 7, you get this. And they showed that the more and more landing pages you have, the exponential growth.
I reference that study constantly as a sales rep. There's no diminishing return to blogging.
Yeah, I said the same thing. See, blogging, landing pages, etc. And so I actually just wrote a post on. I called it. The title of the post is not this, but I call it "Being Inbound," because inbound to me was always a philosophy more than it was a methodology. And so one of the things I said in that was, the blog wasn't successful because you posted 750 to 1,250 words 2 to 3 times per week, which is what inbound marketing became, right? It became, okay, we're going to blog once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. Lindsay, you remember those days, right? That's what we would, that's what we would tell our clients. I said it wasn't successful because of that. It was successful because you had 4,000 words of insight to share every week. See, Lindsay hated my comment so much that
I looked at her. I was looking at the image, and I was like, "She's frozen."
I thought that too, and I was like, in case she's not, I'm going to keep going, acting like it's not the problem. And so.
Well, it's interesting you point out some of the, because there's some things I did want to ask about if Lindsay decided to leave the show today. So now that she's gone, I'll
Hey, I'm the new host of Yin and Yang, everybody. Let's go.
Yes, Doug Davidoff. So I feel like there has been a lot of chatter. I'm not going to name the companies, but if you want to talk about it, that's cool with me. If not, that's fine too. But I think there's been a lot of talk about how forms are dead, that they're becoming less effective, that people are now preconditioned to expect a call from a sales rep the second that they download, register for a webinar, download an ebook, download a research study, so on and so forth. But what I'm also hearing you say, Doug, is that it's still effective. So I guess, I don't know, tell me more about what do you think we're kind of like working toward in the future? I mean, is this something that the average company is not going to be able to use anymore? Or is this something that, people need to rethink? Is this concept of the chatbots really, all that it's made out to be? What are your thoughts?
So let me say first, just because there is a mischaracterization. I actually got asked on Twitter the other day. I don't really debate with you. I actually got, well, Doug, you've been really kind of challenging this for quite a long time. Like, been steadfast in whatever. What's up with that? And I said, well, this isn't like the only thing I challenge, right? Mm-hmm. I challenge groupthink. So for the record, Drift is the company behind No Forms. Brilliant marketing. I mean, right. Absolutely, positively brilliant. I tell people all the time, first thing you got to do, figure out who your enemy is. Inbound, HubSpot had a great enemy, traditional marketing. Outbound to a secondary degree. So right. I am a big fan of Drift. I love what they're doing. I just, don't, and they don't agree with it either. Like if we put them in a room and we were to say, okay, you're designing this for everybody, it's the game that they're playing, and I respect them for that. So please do not mischaracterize what I just said as being a bash on Drift. So going now to your question, two things that. One is you said, can the average company do X, Y, or Z? And I think that's the interesting point. If you want to say there's a change, I think the change is average companies can't do a lot of things that they used to be able to do. I've written about this a number of times as well. Good used to be good enough, right? And good's not good enough anymore. That's the sea change, if you will. And I mean, we could get into a whole bunch of other crazier things if you want on that good aspect. Mm-hmm. And I would agree that people have gotten preconditioned. People do have form fatigue. People have felt a lot of bait and switch, but I don't think anything is different. And let me explain that. It used to be easier, and this gets back again to understanding that metrics are byproducts, not objectives. It used to be easier to get people to fill out forms. Mm-hmm. Okay, because we just filled out for, hey, cool, let's fill that out. And by the way, the reason that happened was if you look at the first people who really embraced inbound plus content to form, they were putting out really good content. So the blog posts were really good. I used to teach the fact if the first insight, if the first interaction I have with you is a conversion form, you're going to lose 95 to 98% of your conversion opportunities. And I would explain that's why you needed to blog. If you're not sharing valuable content that's anonymous and free, then they won't download because there's no trust there. Because the early people, because there was so much really good stuff out there, I actually think people got preconditioned to think, oh, you're offering something, it might be good. Mm-hmm. So we actually dropped our guard. But then not only did we get like inundated with phone calls because one study, and Brian and Lindsay, literally this whole 5-minute rule is based on one study. If you search it, you'll see like 300 different attributions. The study was attributed to a Harvard business study, except when you actually look.
Response Management Institute, which was sponsored by, was it Inside Sales?
InsideSales.com.
Right.
It was Kellogg School of Business did the research, but it was in a Harvard Business article that reported on that. So I saw it actually, someone sourced it to a Harvard Business Review study, except when you looked at that, you saw that it was the InsideSales.com study. So one study said you had a call within 5 minutes, and everyone's hiring SDRs. So not only did we get inundated, and by the way, we got emails like I downloaded the white paper or the cheat guide to how to create a nurture campaign from Marketo. Marketo had a really cool piece on nurturing. And I got an email saying, hey, I saw that you're interested in our platform. And I'm like, no, I was interested in building out nurture campaigns. I had actually no interest. Like, I didn't even remember that I had downloaded it from Marketo.
Right.
I'm like, what is this from? And I was finally able to piece that back together. So A, you had that. But B, more and more and more, what you downloaded was crap.
Right.
Yeah.
It was bait and switch. It was designed to sell. It wasn't really usable. We thought we were giving it away. I mean, marketers looked at it like, okay, we're giving it away for free. And I never looked at it like we're giving it away for free. I'm actually charging a whole lot for it. I want your information. I want your attention, right? So we never looked at content like top of funnel, downloadable content as top of funnel, middle of funnel, or bottom of funnel. Because, by the way, another mistake is what's top of funnel to me is bottom of funnel to you. I don't know where you are in your journey. I don't know what you're thinking. So it could be anything. We actually changed it to light value, medium value, and deep value. So we tie our form strategy to, if this is a light piece of value, a checklist, something, that's nice, we just ask for an email address. And frankly, you can give us your Hotmail email address. When we give you our how to manage inbound leads, and we actually are giving you pieces from our playbook and scripting and things like that, high value content, then yeah, you know what? We ask for your name. We ask for your business email address. We ask for your phone number. We ask you for a lot of information. Now, we're giving something of a lot of value, so we get it. By the way, we've had that same piece. It's now 5 years old. It still converts. It's still our number one converting piece. Not every single month, but consistently our number one converting piece. And it runs. A bad month for it is it converts at 38%, and a good month is it converts at 60%.
Wow.
Right.
That's great.
And the reason, though, is if you look at the blog, we put good stuff out on our blog. We share a lot. In our debates, Brian, I always try to take a tack of, I don't just say I disagree with, right? That's a troll.
Right.
I try to say I disagree with, and here's my take, or here's the alternative to that. And so when you continue to do that, those things work. And so I view, we keep looking at this as either or. And it's not chat or forms. It's chat and forms. Mm-hmm. Because there's a time for chat and there's a time for forms. And there's I would agree with someone said, if you have a contact us form instead of chat, you're foolish. And I agree with that. Like I actually never really saw the point for a contact us form, just between you and me. I'm like, if like the only way I can actually get to you is by filling out a contact us form, maybe you should rethink your strategy, but that's a story for another day. So again, it's really, what we look at, and I think it's one of the things that makes us different in how we approach everything, is we don't look at tactics as tactics. We don't look at products as products. We look at everything as a capability. And we ask two questions. What are we solving for? And what are we hiring for? So we did not start a podcast. We hired a podcast. We didn't start a blog. We hired a blog. We don't write a blog post. We hire a blog post. What am I hiring this blog post to do? What's its job description? We don't buy technology. We hire technology. Mm-hmm. And that helps us. So sometimes we buy something because we need a short-term result. Right. Most of the time we're buying something because we need a longer-term result.
Yep.
In the same way, we don't hire somebody and say, we need your result next month. Right. Hey, I'm going to hire a new COO. Everything's going to be fixed within 30 days.
It would be great if it worked that way. It'd be wonderful.
Nice. Yeah. Businesses would be a lot less profitable, though.
Lindsay, now that you decided to rehire Zoom,
I thought it was the co-host. I thought you were gone, and I became the co-host of the Yin and Yang Show.
Welcome, our new guest, Lindsay Kelly, to the Yin and Yang Show.
Yes. No, it's my model POS PC decides sometimes to just completely stop connecting to the internet. Ooh. And so everything just stops, and so I have to restart. So
we're glad to have you back.
I'm happy to be back.
Glad to have you back.
I'm gonna rehire my Mac sometime soon.
Yeah, that's what drove me over the edge, was like how Windows and the PC would just say, "Hey, I'm shutting down now."
Right. Yeah, this is great.
And you know why that is? Because Microsoft solves for Microsoft and Mac solves for the customer.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
That's right.
Totally agree.
So sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent.
No, and I'm sure I missed some really interesting back and forth conversations there. But if you'd like, you can turn the tables, and now, Brian, you and Doug can be the hosts, and you can ask me questions since I'm the last one to the party now.
No, well, I mean, what we were talking about, while your POS PC was, kind of getting its act together was, I think there has been a fairly healthy debate to say, and there is a little bit of evidence. I mean, even if we just use our own anecdotal experience to say, are we all getting preconditioned to not fill out forms now?
Well, yeah, and we've talked about this before, and like one bad apple or a bunch of bad apples have really spoiled the bunch, because sometimes people download stuff, myself included. It's happened to all of us, and that's not what I expected to get. What is this? This isn't what I wanted. I just gave you my email address for this.
Yep.
And it's we've been conditioned to be very cautious now with what we download, what we offer our information for. And so that's why I really like that approach that we've talked about before. And Doug, I'm sure you're extremely aware of it, where you actually put the entire white paper on individual pages of the website or one page of the website, and then allow the reader to download it in a PDF form to hold on to it for later if they want, because they can see the value inside of the content now.
I hear that. I understand it. There's certainly some data out there that supports it. And we use that strategy in situations. I'm not all the way there with it, because I am a sales guy at the end of the day. Maybe that's what it is. It's like, well, if I'm going to give you value, then I need to get value, and it needs to be commensurate. Right. I think part of the problem is that well, there's a lot of people who are cheating, right? So they're blogging to blog. They're not sharing, they're not delivering value in that. And then they go, oh, inbound marketing doesn't work anymore. But think about it from a business perspective, from what we deliver. In 1970, what a company had to do to deliver value was a hell of a lot less than what they had to do in 1975, then 1985, then 1995, then, the nature of anything that comes out. Think about the iPhone today. I don't know if you guys have the iPhone X, right?
No, I was thinking about it.
Right here, my iPhone X.
Oh, I don't have the X. Yeah, okay.
Okay, this is an amazing device. Like, I can't even, if we just stop for a second and think about it, I can't even conceive of it. Yet, what do analysts say about it? Well, the Galaxy whatever has this over that, and
Galaxy Note,
right. And so if you go back and you look at how people talked about the first iPhone, and by the way, remember, iPhone 1 had no app store, right? Mm. So you only had the apps on the computer. It was 3G. It was amazingly not anywhere near what this is today, but it was like, oh my God, it changed the entire world. It was paradigm shifting. Nobody's even close.
Even the idea of synaptic touch. That was part of the first iPhone, right? Where there's where are the keys, right? Because I remember the first flip phone cell phone I had was you got to press the number 3 times.
To get to
the you got to do it again. And so we all sent really short text messages. And the first time I didn't have an iPhone until, I don't know, maybe the 4 or 5 came out or something like that. And my friends had them, and I'd get these text messages that were a page long. I'm like, what is this? And then you actually start to experience the ability to type that fast. So,
and how well would that phone do today? No, you got to have this to be competitive.
Yeah.
To just be so why are we sitting back going, well, why isn't the content that I produced 3 years ago sufficient? Mm-hmm. Right. We're in that same game. Yeah. There's a lot more good content out there. It used to be, if I just shared, hey, here's how to write a blog post, people would drive to that, they would share it, etc. Well, now there's 1 million people who have told me how to write a blog post. So if all you do is say, here's 5 tips to write a blog post, why are you surprised that it doesn't resonate? You've got to deliver more value, right? You've got to do those things, and here's what
content.
And I'll tell you, I know that I've had to raise my game. I know that we're moving further and further. And actually, Brian, you stimulated this when you called me out on a LinkedIn post about someone asking about, what is a value creative sales process. We are in the process, taking longer than I thought, because we're in the process of writing a document out about, we're going to make our sales process a case study. Mm-hmm. We are literally going to give away our sales process. Mm-hmm. We're going to walk people through the entire sales process, the stages we go through, it scares me a little bit, right? Because that's, me, my sales process is pretty near and dear. But it's like, what we're going to do is we're going to try to get ahead of the game, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to say, here's how to do it without us. Go ahead and try.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because you take, for instance, I'll do a real world situation right here. My husband bought a mold, a kit with step-by-step instructions on how to build a stormtrooper costume, like legitimate, like movie quality. And you could either buy it for just a little bit of money and put it together yourself, or spend 4 times that amount and they put it together for you and it shows up ready to go and it looks great. It is still sitting in my garage. He is so frustrated. It's taking him so long to get it done. He's working on it piece by piece, but think of the time mm-hmm. that it's taking. It's taking time away from other things. Whereas you can give that process away and go, wow, like I can see this. This is great. And they're going to come to you and say, okay, I can't do this myself. I need you.
You know who caused part of that problem? Simon Sinek caused part of that problem.
How so?
I kid a little bit. So Simon Sinek's the guy who popularized Start With Why.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
I just listened to it in my 2-hour commute. Yes. Right.
Although one of my favorite blog posts that I ever wrote was Simon Sinek is wrong. Because Simon says start with why, and I disagree with that. Start with who. And by the way, if you look at every company that he focuses on, they started with their who. Like Apple was focused on who their customer was, and that's what led to their why. But that's a story for another day. But what he did that was great was he got people off of what onto why. Now he does talk about this, but because no one else does, they forget what the middle band is, which is how. Right. Yeah. And the thing that people don't understand in terms of buyer psychology is, if I don't understand the how, I don't value the how. Right. And especially on services, but tech's the same way. It's why cars don't have the same problem in terms of valuation, because I see and touch and feel a Mercedes and I can drive it and compare that to a Ford. Right. And there's no question that they're not the same thing. And now I might not value them. Someone might not value the Mercedes over the Ford, but there's no question this is why the Mercedes is more expensive than the Ford. As an example, or you see and touch a Tesla and you go, oh my God, oh wow, they thought of every little thing. So that physical touch has a big piece to it. But what we're out there doing is, we're either putting out some, flattery, gratuitous why, but the people who are doing some good why, we're getting that attraction, but then we jump right to the why. We never spend the time actually teaching the how. What I've learned is, if you teach the how, and think about this, HubSpot, look at any good tech company, they did this. They give the how away because once you know how to do it, you realize you can't do it without the tech, right? Well, we're trying to do the same thing, and this is a path we followed from the beginning. Let's teach you how to do it. My best inbound leads, even before it was called inbound, came from someone who said, Doug, I got to tell you, I've been reading your blog for 2 years. I actually began to feel a little guilty because I feel like I was stealing all your stuff. And we keep trying to implement it, but it's not quite getting the result we expected. Can you help? I'm like, don't feel bad. That's why it's there. Right. And so look at the content that's out there, and you're going to see there's a lot of why, there's a lot of what, there's very, very little how. And that's the place where need is created. If you think about it, that's what consideration is all about. Awareness is why, consideration is how, decision is what. Right?
But then at the same time, and I'm sure every single person out there that is a marketer who's like, I always want to show that in my content and I'm not allowed to because the corporation is terrified the competition is going to get their hands on it. What's your answer to that?
Go find a company who's not afraid of that.
That's a very tiny window of people.
Not really. It's growing. There are. Let me tell you something, because I actually I don't know if you guys know Ginny Dietrich. She runs a company called Armin Dietrich. She was blogging right about the same time I was. Really forward thinking. She's much more on the marketing space. She's PR than where I was. And if you think about it, there is a tremendous amount of demand that for marketers. The good marketers are hard to find. And if you're a good marketer who has a good take, there's no shortage. It might be a small percentage of companies that fit that description that are hiring, but they're hiring. And that's a great way to stand out. So that was my little off the cuff fun thing. I would tell marketers to practice what they preach, right? If you want to take that game, remember that you have a sale to make and you have an internal sale to make. And Lord knows there's a ton of content out there to teach your company how to do that, to begin to get that mindset.
You just hire Marcus Sheridan.
You could hire Marcus
out
Sheridan.
and do a workshop.
I want to poke the bear a little bit on this one.
No.
So Doug, I got a question for you on this. So Pete Caputa, you both know.
Who's he?
Yeah. So he planted this seed in my mind, and at first I was like, he's a crackhead. Like, no, this doesn't make any sense.
I'm gonna tell him you said that.
Right. And
he might be. By the way, he might be right and still be a crackhead.
This is true. Yes, this is absolutely right. So he put this idea in my head, and then it grew. The seed was in my head, and it grew over time, and it grew and it grew and it grew, and then I fully embraced it, and I was thinking, he's totally right. This is exactly what marketers should be doing. And the seed that he planted, now that I've belabored my point so long, is he said the biggest mistake that marketers are making today is that they believe they should be creating content for their audience. And in fact, they should not be doing that. And they should be creating content with their audience. And this gets to the point that the value of content needs to be elevated. And the only way to elevate the value of content is to actually co-create that content with the experts in whichever industry or segment that you are trying to build a community or an audience around. Go.
So what you're saying is you want me to get Pete mad at me again?
No. Well, look. For example, they're doing this at DataBox, right? You see every single article they put out is like the 30 best ways to blah, 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 or whatever, right? And it's all this co-featured content from all these other people, right? And so, and they've grown I think they wrote an article about this. They grew their website traffic from something like, I want to say 10,000 to 100,000. They did like a 10x growth of their website traffic in a year. Now, I know that that's one metric. It's, the lagging indicator, not leading, whatever. We'll kind of throw that to the side for now. But, I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. And what I'm getting at is, okay, in the future, how do people elevate, or even forget the future, today, how do people elevate the value of content if that is the missing link? You're saying that all this bad content's out there. In order to basically earn someone's attention, you need to rethink the value of the content you're creating. My question as one of our listeners might be, all right, hotshot, how do I elevate the value of my content? What does it look like?
All right. So now you changed the question for me, and I'll try to answer both. What Pete's doing is unquestionably it's working for DataBox, and it's working for Pete, and he started doing it before. I think you got a couple of things that are going on when you look at what they do as to why it works. First off, who's his customer base? Who is that blog targeted to? The blog's targeted to HubSpot agencies.
Right.
He might say it's more than that, but that's the primary market. It's HubSpot agencies.
Absolutely right.
Or the contributors, they're HubSpot agencies.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, what today is still the only profitable newspaper on the planet? Community newspapers. And why are community newspapers profitable? Because they put in lots of pictures and they have lots of names about people in the community. And so there is and by the way, what Pete is relying on to a large degree, and not by no means exclusively, but he's, his strategy was come in, leverage the relationships that he built over years, build the base of agencies, let agencies sell this to the product, build it in, et cetera, which is a brilliant approach for what DataBox is doing in this version of growth. And I think, agencies like the content because they like to hear what other agencies are thinking. Agencies like the content because they have a deep knowledge. And so I I mean, I think if you're a user, I think a lot of the content, now he does do some deep content as well for all the co-creation. He has some, I mean, hell, I wrote one post. I think they said it's a 27-minute read. And it's basically how to put together your annual plan. And I mean, I got into real depth. So there is deep content that he has there,
Wow.
but a lot of that is, you know, I know how to use this. And so Lindsay, you put what you're like, I know SEO, you give me your SEO tip and I go, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And I know how to apply that. Now, if I were not an agency with that level of expertise, I think if you look at a lot of those tips, you'd be like, okay, those are a lot of random thoughts. I don't know what to do with any of it, but that's not what that's designed for, right? He's building that attention and building that noise. And by the way, what's some of the proposition? Why does it work? Well, agencies put their names in there because they get featured, they get linked, it builds inbound links, it does, right? And so they're not necessarily, you know, I want to contribute content because it reinforces. Okay, well, I'm selling to a manufacturer, right? And I sell to other manufacturers, but my manufacturer doesn't sell to other manufacturers. Well, now that whole value proposition has changed. Why do they want to spend time, you know, oh, so they get SEO benefit and they attract a whole bunch of people that are never going to buy their product, which again is not to diminish, not to diminish the strategy that Pete has implemented, but it's to say that there's a game that's being played, there's an audience that's being played, and it's conducive to that audience because he's marketing to content creators, asking them to contribute content. And part of his game is, I'm going to build a bigger platform than you are, right? And I'm going to build better domain authority than you are because I'm a broader base. And so you creating content for me, which helps me drive all this other stuff. You know, there's a lot of reasons why that works.
Sure.
And this gets to my point and why I think playbooks are so important is that's a play that works at DataBox because it fits their overall game plan. You know, it's just like if, you know, a football team sees what the New England Patriots does and says, okay, well, let's copy that play. Well, the New Orleans Saints are not going to run the Patriots play as well as the Patriots are going to run that play. So now to answer the question, what do you do to raise that content? I mean, to raise the level of content?
Right.
It's actually not a complicated answer. It's solve for the customer.
I love that. Solve for the customer.
Right. What problem is this solving? What take? I mean, one thing is have a take. Like have a take. If I read this and I don't know what you think about it, then you're not going to attract anything. If I can't disagree with you, then I can't agree with you. Right. And so there's so much boring milquetoast content out there because there's no take, there's no point of view.
Right. Well, I think one of the most interesting things, and I'll leave us maybe with this for a final thought. Not the final word. I'll give you the final word. But the final thought is, you know, one thing that I've been listening to another podcast, and I don't listen to many podcasts, no offense to podcasts, but yours is one I listen to. And this other one, Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman. One of the co-founders.
Yeah, like he knows what he's talking about.
Right, yeah, knows nothing. But anyway.
Co-founders of what?
Of LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he said, actually, why am I blanking on what I was actually about to say?
That's awesome.
I literally just had a total brain
I've been there.
Zap out. What was the thought?
We were talking about raising content, solving for the customer, have a take. Point of view.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes, I got it back. Thank you very much. So the thought was the way, and this was not his thought. It was he was interviewing this woman, and I can't remember her name of the company, which is terrible of me, but I'll find this. She had been rejected by something like 100 venture capital firms in a row, and she was trying to raise money for her business. And what she eventually kind of got onto the idea of, like, one investor said, you know, I like what you have, but like here's where you like here's how you know when to listen to somebody versus not listen to somebody, when they tell you no versus yes. He said, what you want to hear in an investor pitch deck, and you can apply this to content creation, the marketing work, the sales work, the opinions you have on social media, whatever, is that what you want to look for is creating very polarizing opinions. You want a bunch of people on one side saying, no, like this is terrible, like never going to work, don't see it. And then the other side saying, you know what? Like, I see that. I definitely can see that. And here's why I think, you know, you're right. And when you have that kind of polarizing opinion, what you kind of tapped into is a meaningful conversation that can move thoughts forward and get people to open up and share both sides of an opinion. Because I think one of the best measures of a good kind of conversation or a healthy community is that if people are able to argue multiple sides of a single issue. And that's how we kind of move things forward. So just a thought that, if you're a marketer, this is kind of what I strive for. I definitely don't do it well, but I strive for in some of my blog content, my LinkedIn content in particular. I'm not posting to have a bunch of people say, hooray, like, high five, or a bunch of people to say, no, like, you're an idiot, like, please never post again. I actually want both. I want that polarizing mix, because that results in some really interesting conversation, as you've seen in your own content and some of the stuff that I've posted and, other examples. So
I would just to kind of put a nail on that point. There is no love without hate.
I like that.
If I can't hate it, I can't love it. If someone can't hate it, someone can't love it. And so we occupy this middle, and that goes to the average point, right? Mm-hmm. The average is going to get crushed. It's just going to get crushed. It's going to get taken out, right? Because for a whole bunch of reasons that we don't have time to talk about. Find an edge, right? Be the best for someone, and don't be me too for everyone. And that means to be the best for someone, you have to decide who are you not for. Right. Apple doesn't want everyone to buy from them. Apple doesn't mind that some people think that they're stupid, ridiculous, and I can't change the port in my own device. They go, okay, so what? Don't buy our,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
Because some people love them.
Yep.
And it's irrational. So I agree with you. That's the key. Have a take. Let people disagree with you. Put it out there. And by the way, give the good stuff. If no one will steal your content, then you don't have anything worth buying.
Right.
And I would say the single best thing that could happen to your company is that your competition steals your content. It is the best thing, because now they're playing your game.
Right. Well, I love that. I love that thought. I actually jotted it down. I liked it so much. So any marketers listening, find the edge, be the best at what you do for someone, and don't be me too to everyone.
I would say that's advice for salespeople too, by the way.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Well, some great thoughts today. Thank you so much, Doug, for coming on. Always a nice, rich, insightful conversation as always. So thank you very much. And we'll have to have you back on maybe for the back half of season 2 for sure.
Absolutely. Yes.
Love to.
Sweet. Well, Doug, for our listening audience out there, where can they find your company and you? Best way to reach you?
Our website is imaginellc.com, like imagine the possibilities, imaginellc.com. Twitter, I'm at Doug Davidoff. And from those two places, you can find just about everything, our blog, our podcast, and LinkedIn. Just look up my name and you can see all the fun debates that I have with Brian. And maybe you can join in.
Yep. And what was the name of your podcast again?
The podcast is The Black Line Between Sales and Marketing. We like to talk about it as it's sports radio for sales and marketing, where we take a irreverent view at what's happening in the world of sales marketing and really getting beneath what does that mean for people to be successful.
I can vouch for that. It really does. It did feel, when I was a guest, it was great. And it really did feel like a radio show. It did feel like a kind of behind the scenes type of conversation. And we had, I had a lot of fun. So I would highly recommend that to anybody listening to the show today.
Very cool. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, as always, you can find me on the Twitters at LV Kelly. You can find Brian Sig at Inbound Seller. And his book is coming out, and it's probably going to be out by the time
it's coming
this
soon.
podcast airs.
Mm-hmm.
April 24th. I don't know. It's going to be close. It's going to be close.
Release date. I'm getting the author's first copies next Friday. I got 5 copies coming. So
that means that you and I, Doug, are getting autographed copies
That's right.
over his mom and dad.
Oh yeah.
After we buy one, though.
My parents aren't even in the dedication.
Awesome. All right,
the acknowledgements. Sorry.
Only the acknowledgements. Thank you for giving birth to me, Mom.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again for joining. We always really appreciate your ear. Please hop over into iTunes and give us a review if you could. And folks, until next time, keep the conversation going.
Yeah, keep talking.